Ladies and gentlemen, yet again, thanks for having me here. I love talking about productivity, but one of the reasons why I love talking about productivity is because we believe, we had a discussion with, I think it was Andy, he's not in the, I can't see him right now. It's chicken or the egg. Does productivity foster innovation? Does innovation foster productivity? It doesn't actually matter. But we want to show a bit about what are some of the philosophies that we actually use and believe in at Google, and how some practical examples of some of the easy tools we use to actually be innovative. And sometimes it's not just tools; it's policies and the way that we do things. I wouldn't call them rules, or in some cases, it might be the absence of rules. Because technology by itself is completely useless. It's all about what kind of environment you're in that actually allows for you to use them to the full extent. And that actually gives you a situation where you can foster innovation. So if I have time, I'm going to give you some examples of how we tackle one of the more tricky productivity challenges. But if not, we're going to stick just to the innovation part. So first things first, getting our story straight, because everyone talks about innovation, but what is it really? So just to get the definition clear, it's when you're actually making changes. And you change something that exists, something that's established. And you can do that in many ways. Most people think of innovation as you're creating something brand new. It's usually a product, something new, something shiny, something that it gets people to say, wow. But that's not the only way of innovating. So you can innovate greatly within your own organization, even if you're not involved in products. You can innovate in the sense that you can change the way that your company does things. And that's very powerful, because the more productive company is going to be able to beat the less productive one. And what we saw in my former presentation is that speed is everything now, and productivity gives speed. Because, as you see, your competitor will be someone that's going to have been around for a very short amount of time. So you're not even going to be aware of them until it's a big threat, and it sometimes might be too late. So learning how to do things quicker and more efficiently, that's such a competitive advantage that I'm ashamed to say it's underestimated. So now we got the definition straight. So here's something that we believe at Google, that innovation happens when you have, number one, you need good people. No question about it. But you need technology that actually doesn't hold people back. And if you have those two elements, you might be lucky enough to have a culture that will enable you to be an innovative organization. I feel I need to drink. So if you can see, they're a bit dark, these photos, but here we have a couple of our offices. And that's something that we definitely believe in, that the workplace, you should be having fun. So I think this is actually in Zurich. So we actually have a slide so people can go between floors. And like 95% of people have probably never used it, but just the fact that it's there and it's a playful environment, that we know that, yes, we work hard, we take things very seriously. In all honesty, I've never seen as many hardworking people as I've seen since I came to Google, simply put. But it also means that you need a release of some sort. You need to be able to, from time to time, just take a break from what you're doing right now, clear your mind so that you're not just trotting along. You need to be, maybe for us it's many times just sitting in one of these cocoons. You grab your laptop, you continue doing your work there, but you're in a different environment, and it it breaks the monotony. And I think it's crucial because we're asking people to be creative. So you actually have to have an environment that feels stimulating and creative. So it's going to look like daycare. It's going to be bright colors all over. There are way too many similarities with daycare now that I actually said it out loud. But there's a library too. There's some serious stuff going on there. But this is just one of the examples. I mean, it's not just all just have a shiny place to work. That's just the garnish. That's how I feel. If your work isn't motivating and you don't feel that you're actually contributing to something innovative, I'm tired of the word innovative already. I'm 5 minutes into my speech. If you don't feel that you're working with the right people, you're doing the right things, this won't matter. This will be completely irrelevant. So I'm actually going to read what in the founder's IPO letter. And that is, Google is not a conventional company, and we do not intend to become one. Throughout Google's evolution as a privately held company, we've managed Google differently. We also emphasized an atmosphere of creativity and challenge, which has helped us provide unbiased, accurate, and free access to information for those who rely on us around the world. This came as quite a shock to Wall Street because no one has ever written an IPO letter like that. And I'm happy to see when I joined that this was still true. So this philosophy is still alive and probably doing as well as it's ever been. So from our founders up to our CEO, Larry Page, this is what we actually believe in. So you got to have something like this as your guiding light when you're looking at what you're doing from day to day on your workday. So here are some different notions of innovation. I'm going to go through each and every one of them and give some examples of what it is that or actually how we do things. So one of the things we believe is innovation, it's not perfection. So we launch things, and they're not always perfect. But what we believe is the mantra launch and iterate. Because once you put something out in the world, maybe it's just within your an internal tool, it's a process, it's a reporting function, or it could actually be a product. As soon as you let something out into the world, the users, which can be external or internal people, they will tell you what they like and what they don't like about it. And that is very powerful because you could have spent a lot of time getting to the same end results, knowing what needed to be fixed, but you could have spent a whole lot of time, and you're actually not guaranteed to reach that end destination. So that is what we do. We try, as soon as we feel that this is good enough to actually be tested, be used, whatever it may be, out you go. So we have two things that are really important. For us, we have something called dog fooding. And that is the saying, you eat your own dog food. So we test everything ourselves. Before we even let beta testers try our products before a full launch, we've all tried them. And we get to try them when they're at their most buggy, annoying, crashy, and troublesome selves. So they try everything on the 50,000 Googlers around the world. And then we have something called Google Labs. This is before we actually launch something into the world. We think, let's get the early adopters to test this out, because we might know that it works. Like this thing, it actually does what it's supposed to do. We're not really sure if people want it or need it. So for those of you who have Gmail, if you go into your settings, there's going to be a tab called Labs. In that tab, there are these experimental things that we think this could actually be something. And then we let you try it. And then we look at, okay, how many people are actually using it? And how many people who have switched it on are using it on a day-to-day basis, and we also get some feedback on that, and that's so powerful. That means that we don't have to be 100% certain that this is perfect. This is the magic bullet that's going to be changing everything. No. So we get to try and experiment, and it also means that sometimes we make mistakes. I know that there's at least one person in here who has used Google Wave before. Can I see a show of hands if anyone else used it? We have, oh, John is not here, but I know he did. I questioned him. Google Wave was one of these things that the premise was it's different. It's something, I would say, if email was invented today, that was the vision of it. And didn't work out. We've canned it. It doesn't exist anymore. But here's the thing. People got excited about it. Engineers, they wanted to work on the project because in many cases, you can choose what projects you feel passionately about, and you can spend your time on them. But it just didn't work out. But that doesn't mean that it was a bad idea. It just didn't work. All ideas don't work out. So what you can do is you take parts of it that were actually good and make other products that we already have better. So that's one of the things. Like, don't be afraid to be less than perfect, because you can either change it till it becomes perfect, or if it just doesn't work, see what you can use and actually make something else better because of it. The second thing is share everything you can. So we're all about sharing. We're an extremely open organization. For instance, I wanted some inspiration for this speech, and I witnessed another speech from a colleague of mine. I've never met him, but I was in a video conference when I was hearing him talking about some interesting topics that were closely related to this. So I just asked, can you share your presentations? And no one, since I started at Google, has ever said no. It's like, they always say the same thing. I can send it to you, but it's actually better if I walk you through it. I'm like, wow. The people are so helpful because they know that whenever they need something, there will be someone who's not just willing to share, but they're willing to explain it, put it into context for whoever actually needs it. So, like, in all of our internal tools that we use for creating documents, we use our web-based tools called Google Apps. There's always the blue share button. So sharing is as easy as creating. That's how we say. So it's as easy for me to share a document as it is creating it. And in many cases, I have a folder that is viewable for anyone within Google can see. If they search internally, they'll find it. I usually I put all my stuff in there because someone else will be able to use it. And I get calls, I get emails from all over the place. Most recent was Brazil. Someone was there and they said, this presentation really aligns with what we're trying to do. Can you talk me through this? I'm like, book me for half an hour and we'll do it. And I think that's extremely powerful. And we actually use our own search algorithm. We have these yellow boxes that allows us to have the power of Google search, but actually just within our own intranet. So every document that's ever been created, you can find, and internal sites and so on. So it's very powerful because the cost of an unanswered question is high. So if you look here at the IDC report, 38% of knowledge workers, office workers, people, is spent on these three things. They're not very productive. So gathering and unsuccessfully trying to find something and recreating what is already there. Now, talk about a waste of productivity. You might have the best people in the world, but you're utilizing 2/3 of their potential because they're busy doing something that they shouldn't be doing in the first place. So I'm very thankful that we have these opportunities within Google, and I'm even more happy that we've just opened the doors. Like every tool that we use internally, we push out into the world. So use them, use them. They're making us great. We want you to be great as well. So when it comes to sharing, it's not just about from your peers. It comes from the top down. So every quarter, the letter that goes from the leadership team to the board of directors, we actually get to read. We get a copy of that email. So that always gives us like that litmus test of where are we as an organization right now. What are some of the things that we believe to be true? What are some of the things we're trying to achieve? Where are we struggling? What do we have to do better in the future? So this is a discussion that's taken at the absolute top level. And for me, when I'm planning my next quarter, it's very good to know, because that gives me something to align with. Okay, when I create we call them OKRs, Objectives and Key Results. And we do them every quarter. So I look to do certain things, like I have my core job, but I also have significant strategic projects that I want to accomplish. For me, it's quite easy. Setting these when I know what's going on at the top level, so we know that everything is aligned. Like transparency will set you free. It's as simple as that. But it's uncomfortable. But this is the way it's always been. If your employees could actually know what's being discussed at the highest level, they would feel very motivated. They would feel like they could actually contribute, because even though I have my small OKRs, they roll up into my team's OKRs, they roll up and so on, and at the top level, we have global ones. So everyone's single objective rolls up into one main one. It makes it very easy to be aligned. I'm saying it's easy, it's really hard, but it makes it easier. And also, it's not just transparent in the way that information, flows down, but in the sense that it's such an open organization that you can actually ask questions. So we have all hands, which is, the top leadership team meets up and they have a panel like you see here, and they're telling them about this is on the roadmap, this is what we're planning to do, but it's also free for anyone to ask questions. Anyone can ask questions, and that's expected. So there are going to be a couple of hundred people there, and there's going to be lines to the microphones, and there are usually very difficult questions that are being asked. The tough questions, and it's actually very important that people are free to ask these tough questions. But it's also, the right people have to be there in the first place. So we set the bar very high. We want people who are extremely talented, usually that they can do more than one thing, because what we've seen is that people start doing one thing, they're going to go on and do something completely different within the organization, because they're multi-talented, and that's what we're looking for. And also, there's something I've never witnessed before, that most of the recruitment we actually do ourselves, like not HR and recruitment. Those teams, they're the facilitators, but I do interviews all the time myself, and so do my colleagues. And we interview for our own team, and then we have a panel, so we can actually put our minds together to see, does a complete picture of this person emerge? And I think it must be hard to interview someone for a role if the person who's interviewing doesn't even know what the role is. It's very hard to ask the right questions. But it's also hard, even if someone from the team is interviewing for the team, you only have so much time, and you might have a certain angle that you're approaching it from when you're interviewing. You might miss a couple of the others. So by having more people interviewing and then come together as a committee to make decision, you might actually get the full spectrum picture of the person. You can make an informed decision. I think this is probably one of the more known ones of our philosophies. So it's about what we call 20% time. Can I see a show of hands who has actually heard of that before? Okay, yeah, I suspect that we're going to just be a few. So 20% time originated from our engineering department, where they will spend 80% of their time on their core job, and then 20% time on something that they feel passionately about. So, as it says there, we actually have some really interesting projects that came out of these side projects. Here are a few of them: Gmail, Google AdSense, and Google News. And as Paul says, the father of AdSense, it's the ability to work on things that are unapproved. And some people might think that there's nothing there. They might be stupid, but you're allowed to, because no one is actually going to, meddle with that. License to work on something that is not important. Well, it actually might end up being important once it's actually done. Now, for me as a non-engineer, the projects I do when I set my objectives and key results, they're usually aligned with the business we're in, that can actually somewhere down the road bring value, but it doesn't necessarily have to be related to my core job. And that means that you can actually, if you have a team where everyone is essentially devoting one day of the week to something that they feel that we should be working on as an organization, give that enough time, enough people doing that, it actually might turn out to be something valuable. And it's proven to be, because if you're on the right track here, other people will actually want to join in and devote some of their 20% time, and all of a sudden, you've reached critical mass, and some great things can happen. And so I think Jonathan Rosenberg, from head of product, I think, he said, I mean, if you aren't making any mistakes, you aren't innovating enough. So the 20% time is one of the aspects of the license to pursue dreams, but also the openness towards failure, that you have to be allowed to fail. But I think my global director, he usually says, fail, but fail fast. So find out pretty quickly if this is a dud or not. Ideas can come from everywhere. So I think this is a natural extension of the four topics I've been talking about so far. So here are some of the things that allow ideas to be coming from many different places. Loosely defined job roles, where people can actually, use their best capabilities to actually go beyond what their job description is written to do, but what they actually feel that they should be doing. And also, about the physical surroundings, I showed them before, things that promote people to sit together, talk to each other. Yes, we have a very open office landscape. It gets noisy. I invested in noise-canceling headphones I put on from time to time to cope with it, but the net effect is very positive. Permission is assumed. That's I think one of the core beliefs as well, is you don't ask for permission. If you feel that this is something that you know something about, you start to feel ownership. Like for instance, me working with big partners over Asia Pacific, if there's something I feel that we're not doing, I will initiate something to actually correct that. And then I'll try to get people to support it from managers and get people to chip in. I'm not going to ask permission to do it, because I think once you're entrusted, you actually start seeing things, and you start seeing things that could be done when you know that the one who's giving you permission is you. And I think that's extremely important. Last thing I want to show here, this is actually one of our tools called Google Moderator. It's free for anyone to use that has a Gmail account. And if you have Google, our corporate version, you can actually restrict it to only people within your organization. I have 5 minutes. Now I know what to do. Give myself 5 minutes less than I need. So this is actually a tool that we use to get input from people. So what this does is you can submit a question. So let's say we have a meeting. Anyone can submit a question to it. They can even do it anonymously. Here they haven't done it. They've all put in their names. But if you have a suggestion, an idea that you think we should be discussing, so if this is a meeting with, it's usually with our head of Google Enterprise, there will be lots of questions here. And then people can vote. If they think is this a good question, it will move up. So it'll be dealt with first in the agenda. It's such an easy way to get people who normally wouldn't dare to speak up, actually share what's on their mind and ask questions and suggest things. Yeah, this is actually from the last presidential election for one of the debates. So during the Obama's last debate, they actually used this. So citizens could actually ask questions, which were brought up during the debate. Moonshots and 10x. Two things that we hear a lot about. The man to the top here is Astro Teller. That sounds like a superhero to me, but that's just me. And he's heading up Google X. Google X is where if you've heard about the self-driving cars and the Google Glass, which I really wish I could get my hands on, but it's not happening. That's where these things come from. A moonshot thinking is basically you pick a big problem. You pick one that's huge, and then you throw out a radical solution. So based on maybe the brief research or what you already know, and then you put together a solution. And then you find, is there evidence to support that this is actually not as crazy as it initially sounds? And what that might amount to then is, okay, we're actually going to take a closer look at this, see if this is something that we can actually achieve. And I mean, it comes from the moon race during the Kennedy administration, where they set a very lofty goal, and they said, I think it was something along the lines, we're not doing it because it's easy, we're doing it because it's hard, and people started rallying behind it. And they achieved more in that decade than anyone thought ever was possible. So in the same line of thinking, what we're trying to do is, these crazy ideas, but also improving things 10 times. Usually you hear people talking about improvements 10%, but it's actually proven to be easier to do things 10 times better, like radical shifts. Because when you're looking to improve things 10%, you're using the tools and the assumptions that already exist, and that probably everyone else knows as well. So you're basically playing the same game as your competitors. So the way to compete is, in some sense of the word, it's not doing things better, but is doing the right things. I think that's an important distinction here. So this is the last one. I think I should be roughly on time here. So it would be a crazy place if ideas come from everywhere and everyone is entitled to pursue their dreams, and it would probably be daycare if I'm going to bring it back to where we started. So the thing is, you have to, as my director says, fail, but fail fast. So the thing is, instead of doing tons and tons and tons of research, you test a hypothesis. You identify a problem, and then based on what you know or what you can easily find out, let's put our best solution out there. And then you test it, because there has to be a way to actually prove it. Does it work or does it not? And before you actually test it, make sure how will I actually know? how will I know if we're on the right track or not? Is it just qualitative feedback? No, because that you can usually reason your way to sticking with something or actually canning something that was actually worth your while in the first place. So we need to figure out how can we objectively measure if this is something. And I think that's the checks and balances of how we work at Google, is that it's creative, but you got to know if you're right or wrong. So with that, I would like to say thank you.
Yep. Do we have any questions of Jonathan as the sugar hits from after lunch, etc.? 1, 2, 3, don't be shy. Everyone's going, wow, cool, done, clear. So they'll come up with questions. No, here we do. We'll have one question and then we'll go to the next phase of the session.
Peter Verburn from Conditioning Mechanical Contractors. Jonathan, giving people that much freedom in the workplace, doesn't it create or potentially create ethical or moral questions about what people are doing?
Oh, definitely, because we're working with things that people use every day, and we work with things that contain people's personal information. So whenever something is created, there is actually there's an ethics and compliance function that checks, all right, what is it that you're actually attempting to do here with either a new product or a new change? Like, does this in any way alter our obligation? It's an obligation towards our users. So there's always a peer review involved before anything goes live. And in many cases, things get pushed back. Engineers probably hate that. It's like, it's a great product, but then we're thinking, what is everyone going to say about it? Because we're changing things fundamentally. You have to go back to the drawing board a bit and change this and that. And it's an important function because we create many small, we're all over the place in the sense of the products that we create now on the web, since there are not really that many restrictions once the web and the browsers and mobile phones, they're your delivery system. So there can be so many things. So I'm thankful that we actually do have that.